Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I am going to be going over the financial aid offer letter. If you have not received your financial aid offer letter, you need to fill out your FAFSA. You and your parent need to do that, turn it in, and then our financial aid team will create one for you. If you have filled out your FAFSA and you have received a financial aid offer letter, we're going to go over how to read the offer letter and hopefully answer as many questions as I can for you. I do want to point out, if you would like to go over this with your admissions counselor, or if you would like to go over this with the financial aid team, you can sign up for something called a financial aid next step appointment, and we will go over it line by line with you. But this is essentially that meeting, except when it's with you personally, we're going to be going over your specific numbers. This is going to be a very generic offer letter. Everyone's offer letter is going to look a little differently, so please keep that in mind. As we're looking at the first page here, make sure that it does have your first and last name. And then also, I want to point out, it says estimated financial aid offer letter for the 2025-2026 academic year. Your offer letter is not going to look the same next year, depending on your housing situation, if that's going to change, depending on FAFSA changes, these numbers won't look the same. So please keep that in mind. Also, you are going to be filling out your FAFSA each year that you are in school, and you are going to be borrowing money if you decide to take out loans for each of those years. We'll go over that a little bit more in a second, but this is why this offer letter is for just the 2025-2026 academic year. Now, let's go to the second page. All right, so this is where most of the information is going to be housed. There's going to be a lot of numbers on here. We're going to go through this line by line. First off, make sure this says your name up here. Also, for the vast majority of our students, they are going to be living on campus. So make sure that on this line here, if you are living on campus, make sure it says living on campus. If you are commuting, or if you are living off campus, make sure that reflects that as well. But we're gonna go and assume that this random student is living on campus, and these numbers are going to reflect that. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is going to be the build costs. This is going to be how much tuition and going to CCAD is going to cost before any grants and scholarships or loans are taken into account. So we have the tuition and fees, we have housing and food, aka the meal plan, and then also the freshman art supply kit. This is going to include any of the art supplies you're going to need your freshman year. So in total, you are going to be billed $54,595 per year. Now, next door to this, we have estimated other costs. These are going to be costs that we will not automatically bill you for unless you decide to take advantage of them. For example, books and supplies. Not a lot of people have that many textbooks these days. The reason why this number is so big is in case you need to get a new laptop. We're going to talk a little bit more about private loans here in a second, but this would be very helpful to anyone who is interested in going to their bank and getting a private loan there. You'll be able to take this letter to them, and hopefully the banker will be able to see how much extra money you might need and maybe give you a little bit more in loans. Obviously not a guarantee, but it can't hurt. So that is why these numbers are a little bit bigger than expected. Another example would be transportation. Freshmen are allowed to have cars on campus for the first year. However, you don't have to. Freshmen do get COTA bus passes with their tuition, but if you do decide to get a car and have it on campus, you will need to sign up for a overnight parking pass. So that would be a part of this number, as well as, expected expenses like gas and maintenance, stuff like that, okay? Personal expenses, going out with friends, getting groceries for the dorm, stuff like that. Just keep that in kind of in the back of your head, like this is not going to be your only expense if you decide to take advantage of these, okay? Now, here comes the fun part. We get to talk about grants and scholarships. So as you are aware, every student at CCAD gets a merit scholarship. This is based off of their portfolio and then also their GPA they got from school, okay? So that is going to be the first scholarship that is going to be listed in this, this area here. You'll notice that the numbers are actually split in half between the fall semester and spring semester. You are going to be paying tuition at the beginning of fall semester and the beginning of spring semester. So we do tell you how much money in total that you're going to be receiving per year, for the year, I should say. But just realize that half of this amount is going to be taken off of the fall semester tuition payment and the spring semester tuition payment, all right? Now, if you have received any additional scholarships, maybe you were in the Scholastics event or Ohio Governor's Art Exhibition, or maybe you got an institutional grant, maybe you received federal grants for doing FAFSA. Those numbers will be listed here as well as split in half again for the fall semester and spring semester. Now, if you take this total build cost and you subtract the amount of grants and scholarships that you've received, that is where you're going to get the estimated balance left over that you will owe. Total amount of aid minus grants and scholarships. Now, because you filled out FAFSA, the vast majority of you are going to be offered federal student loans, okay? This is coming from FAFSA. There are two different types of loans that you have the option of taking out. And again, I want you to hear what I just said, option of taking out. The two loans that you were offered are going to be the subsidized student loan and unsubsidized student loan. The big difference between these two is when the interest rate starts adding up. For those of you who may not know what an interest rate is, essentially, you are going to be borrowing a large amount of money from the federal government. The government says, okay, we're going to let you borrow this amount of money, but because we know it's going to take a long time to pay back, we are going to tack on a certain percentage of money on top of it for as long as it takes for you to pay it back. So the difference between both of these loans is when that interest rate starts adding up. If you decide to take out the federal direct subsidized student loan for this year, you'll be able to borrow each year if you need it. That means that if you borrow that amount of money, the interest rate won't start adding up until you graduate, okay? Now, if you want to borrow the federal direct unsubsidized student loan, this means that you can borrow that amount now, but the interest rate starts accruing now, all right? We'll talk a little bit more about the federal loans in a second, but those are the big differences between the two. You have the option of borrowing both of those loans, one of those loans, or none of the loans, depending on what you and your family think you need, okay? Please keep in mind that if you decide to borrow the federal student loans, that is going to be in the student's name. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well, all right? Now, if you decide to take out the loans, usually because we're doing the math for you, we're going to assume you take out both loans. Again, you don't have to, but assuming you do, you're going to subtract the total loan amount from the estimated balance, and that's where we get the total balance after scholarships and loans are subtracted, okay? And it's going to show up here. Now, before we go on to the next page, I want to mention one other opportunity that a lot of students, not all, but a lot of students will be offered. based off of where they landed with their FAFSA. So this is a program called Federal Work Study. And it's a really cool program because not only does it help out CCAD, but it also helps out the students if they want to make a little bit extra money. This only applies if the student decides to become a student worker at CCAD. You can't work at Kroger or Target or Walmart or wherever and still get work study. Essentially, this program is the federal government gives CCAD a certain amount of money to pay the student worker in wages. Okay, so over time, you're getting little increments of that amount. It really helps CCAD create more jobs for more students. And for the bigger part of that is students have a stable job that understands that they are students first, and we can work around your schedules. Okay. If you are interested in becoming a student worker, we do have a job board that will open up in August. It's called Handshake, and you'll get an email telling you that it's about to open late July. Okay. Or a couple months before the semester starts if you are a student that's starting in the spring. All right, now we're going to go into the third page here. So you will notice that on the left-hand side here, we have a nice little glossary of different definitions of things that I just talked about. If you get to the end of this webinar and you're like, ooh, what does work study mean again? You scroll all the way down here and there's a nice little definition here for you, okay? Now, when it comes to this letter, we are happy to go over this as many times as you need. We understand that a few of these things can be a little confusing, so please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. However, when it comes to the things that I'm about to talk about, like loans, different financing options, stuff like that, our financial aid team is actually the ones you're going to want to talk to, and they can walk through a lot of these processes for you. So for your convenience, we have added the admissions, the general admissions phone number and email at the top of this page, as well as financial aid's phone number and email. Okay. Now, next steps. If you would like to go over your specific financial aid offer letter, we can go over it with you during an appointment called a financial aid next step appointment. You can sign up for one on your new student gateway, or you can email us and set one up there as well. All right, so that would be this bullet point. This next bullet point that we're going to talk about is pretty big. This is called the loan action form. This is what you are going to fill out to declare whether you want to take out both federal loans, one federal loan, or no federal loans. Okay. I want to point out that it is going to ask you information to confirm that your name, your social security number, your birthday, all that stuff is correct. Once you fill out all the information in the form and get to the very bottom of the page, before you hit submit, there are going to be 2 additional links that you are going to click to get you to studentaid.gov, which is where you filled out FAFSA originally. There are going to be 2 additional forms that you need to fill out along with the loan action form. So you'll do the loan action form, and then you will do something called the loan entrance counseling, which is a video that you're going to watch that teaches you what it means to take out a loan. What's your interest rate going to be? When do I start paying back loans? Where do I pay the loans, right? So those questions are going to be answered in that video and questionnaire that's going to be at the end, all right? Finally, you're going to fill out the master promissory note. This is a big, scary name for a legal document that it basically says, I promise to pay back my student loans. And you'll sign that, and that is how you receive the loans. When I say receive loans, the federal government is actually going to send us your loan directly. So it's not going to pass into your hands to pay us. So you don't even have to worry about that. Keep that in mind, okay? Now, again, if your housing plans don't match what it says on your offer letter, or if your housing plans have changed, please let us know so we can update your bill and also update our system accordingly. The next thing we're going to talk about here is going to be our financing options. So we talked earlier about the estimated balance after federal loans. After you take out, both one or none of the loans, you're still going to have a balance left over that you yourself have to pay immediately, okay? So how are you going to attack that, right? So obviously you would be able to pay in full on the student portal that you will get access to once you deposit. But there are other options as well. The first thing I like to suggest to people is if this is something that they would be interested in, they can sign up for the CCAD monthly payment plan. You will, by signing up for the monthly payment plan, you will pay a certain percentage of that leftover balance at the beginning of each month. So for example, if you have $20,000 left over, right? It is going to split up that yearly amount into 10 payments, okay? So you will owe $200, $2,000, not 200, $2,000 at the beginning of each month, okay? That makes it a little more attainable for people. So it's a good option if you would like to sign up for that. The next option we like to suggest is taking out a private loan. The student can either take out a private loan or the parent can take out a private loan in their name as well if they'd like. This is basically you going to a bank or a credit union, showing them this letter and them giving you a certain monetary amount with a corresponding interest rate, okay? What we suggest is actually shopping around for this. Just because you've banked with one certain bank your entire life does not mean they're going to give you the best deal, okay? So definitely shop around to credit unions as well. They tend to give a little bit better offers, okay? Another option for you is signing up for the Federal Parent Plus loan. This is very similar to the student federal loans. You would go onto studentaid.gov, just like where you filled out FAFSA, and then the parent can take out a loan in their name and go through the federal government that way. If you have a external scholarship that you received from maybe your school, maybe your church, maybe you did an essay for a specific external scholarship and you received it, definitely let us know who you received the scholarship from and the dollar amount. We will require the confirmation email or letter to be sent to us, so have that ready, all right? But we will update your bill once we get word about that. And then finally, if your family has saved up with a 529 or family savings plan, I would start talking to your bank now and getting that switched over so you can access that, okay? If you have not already done so, and if you are ready, there is a enrollment deposit that you need to pay depending on if you're living on campus or off campus. If you are living on campus, which most of you will be, it's going to be $350, and that includes the housing deposit, okay? So you're gonna see that in a few other places. You might see that in a few places. If you pay the enrollment deposit, you have already paid it. If you are living off campus or commuting, it's going to be $200 because you don't have to pay a housing deposit, okay? So keep that in mind. That number is not in addition to your tuition payment. That is coming from your tuition payment. So don't panic about an additional amount of money that you have to pay, okay? If you have any questions about any of this, please do not hesitate to reach out. We are happy to go over this as many times as you need. And we understand that this is a little difficult. There will be some webinars that are happening in June and July, so please keep an eye out for those. But I want to thank you for joining me today and going over this offer letter. I look forward to talking with you. Thanks.